Sometimes I really love, as in not really love, but I'm annoyed by how God kicks me in the pants to learn a lesson, to pay attention to something. And this week's scripture really has done that for me. It starts out talking about Jesus being invited to dinner in a highly stratified society, more stratified than we find, more honestly, I guess, stratified than we find in North America these days. And then he talks about a parable about a wedding banquet. Well, my process is usually after I finish my service for the previous week, I go home, I read scripture, and I just wait as I mull and I read the comments of other people to see what emerges. Well, it just happened that last week, after I finished the Sunday service, I went home, did the reading as I normally did, and then got ready because I was invited to a wedding reception. And this is for a young woman who I've known for 11, 12, 13 years. I met her as a young teenager. I helped train her in Girl Guides, a lot of leadership experience, helped her run a camp with another friend, helped her really grow. And I've got some fabulous memories of this girl, young woman now, really. But I also have a really overarching memory of being absolutely beyond enraged by this young woman. And the reason I hold on to that memory is because it is an example of my absolute biggest fail as a leader, as an adult, as a responsible person. I don't want to let those moments go because they remind me what I need to learn in life. So here I am sitting at this wedding reception. And the two memories I have are one where she's absolutely radiant about something she's just done, and this horrible one where I have just lost it on her. And she's sitting there looking at me, a little stunned, upset, doesn't let go, has a smile on her face. And it was the biggest moment of comeuppance for me. It was, as I said, a huge fail for me. And these two memories kept competing as I'm watching her with her new husband walking around the room, greeting people, celebrating one of the most joyous times of her life up till that point in time. And her mother kept coming over to me and thanking me for everything I'm done. And all I can think of is this failure to be who she needed me to be on that one occasion. The fact that I obviously was there for her for another number of years doesn't seem to negate that one time when I wasn't. And I'm sitting in this room looking around at all these people who I don't know, and it suddenly dawns on me I'm in a place of honor. Not only am I invited to a wedding, not only am I reminded how I so tragically failed her at one point in time in her development, when no young woman, no person should have that kind of treatment that I had given. Here I am sitting at one of the tables of honor in this wedding. And when that realization dawned, it kind of took my breath away. I did not realize how important I was to this family. That experience is something I want to bring in to the scripture today because Jesus gives the example of when you're at a wedding banquet. Do not assume a place of honor. Assume something a little more humble, a little further down the line, and have the guests or have the host greet you and bring you up to a further place of honor. That's just social etiquette 101, really. And in typical Lucan form, what we have here is a gospel with a 1-2 punch. Not only is Jesus saying, just obey social etiquette, like don't assume more of yourself because you might not be as significant to the host as you think you are. Or conversely, you might be far more significant to the host than you think you are. Let the host decide where you get to sit. Don't you just make assumptions based on your sense of self. And then Jesus continues, by the way, that banquet you're holding, yeah, don't just invite people who can do things for you. Invite people who can't. That is the ministry element that's in the reading this week. Not the attending the banquet. I mean, whatever. That's just, it's a nice setting that we can talk about. But when you are in a situation, invite people who cannot pay you back. Now, that's a concept, isn't it? Because we are in a society of quid pro quo, of I do this for you, you did this back for me. In many ways, my invitation to the banquet of the wedding banquet was, you've done so much for my daughter, now she's going to invite you to her wedding. That could have been the total sum exchange if I didn't have all these memories of this young woman as she has grown for the past decade. I was not in a position now, as I had been previously, to guide her and lead her and do things for her, but they were thanking me, essentially, for everything that I had done over the years, and that was fine. But Jesus is saying the banquets that we create, the invitations that we pass out, the mission that we do, and let's not pretend this isn't actually a banquet that Jesus is talking about. This is the mission of the church, is don't go to people who can pay you back. Don't spend your time in mission with the people who have the businesses who can donate to your community, or who have the social lineage and the family lineage that will benefit your community, or will have the PR or the cachet to enrich you. That's not how God works with us. That's not how we as God's representatives are supposed to work with each other. Can you imagine a world where everything that God gives is expected to have an equal output or equal response? I mean, there's some people who have tried to twist the gospel into that, but that is never what God is about. God has always given us far exceeding more amounts than we could possibly repay. And that's how we are to do ministry. Not to pay attention to those who are like us, who can do things for us, who will be in this reciprocal relationship. That doesn't really enhance us at all. We need to be in situations where we are inviting those who can't do anything back for us, or conversely, recognize the situations where we are given gifts that we cannot repay. Getting back to that incident with that girl who I hurt her feelings so desperately she couldn't even react. That moment of grace that she gave me by not reacting was a huge mirror for my fail. None of this was about her. It was about my fail. I had no way of responding appropriately to make it better. Nothing. Over time, things changed, but I will never not remember that. When people have given me gifts, I say thank you, because I don't start with the assumption that they are to be paid back. When I give gifts, I certainly don't expect that. I expect people to enjoy and live on, because I really try to work hard at being the hands and feet of God. The banquet is just the metaphor for how we give, how we accept people in. Imagine if in our communities, in our churches, in our gatherings, we did not pay attention to people like us, but we paid attention to people who are struggling, homeless folk, people who are working the sex trade with not a choice, because there are people who work in the sex trade for choice, people who are in horrible family or marriage situations that they can't get out of, people who are poor, who are working very, very hard but just cannot make enough. These are all the people that Jesus spent time with, by the way. They're all the ones that Jesus sought out. The fact that this story takes place in a Pharisee's home, someone of prestige and power, and Jesus proceeds to basically shame him and tell him this story and this parable as a way of teaching, reminds us that Jesus was always prepared to call out the hypocrisy of the comfortable. We have to be prepared to call out the hypocrisy in our own comfort and start to look at how we can create this bank, create this world for everyone, not just the people who make us feel comfortable or who can do it in return. When we are a guest at a wedding or an event, we take a lower place. When we are the hosts, we provide people who can't return the invitation. It's really, really simple. probably why it's so difficult. It's that simple. Give to those out of generosity, the way God gave to us. That's the equation. Quid pro quo is not how we're supposed to be doing Christianity.